Hi everyone, this is Michelle Crazy Homemaker. It's January 27th and it's a chilly 56 degrees outside, and I'm going to show you what's going on in my back garden. We have two gardens and a greenhouse, and this is what I'm going to show you is where I'm working today. Alright, can you see these tires here? This is how we're planting our watermelons. Last year was our first time ever trying it in these tires. And I got the idea from Homestead Heart. I watched how they did theirs, and I figure if they can do them, then we can do them too. So we got some pretty good sized ones. However, we planted them too late, and we didn't get anything much of the eating worth. So we did get small ones, and we did eat them, and they were pretty good, but it wasn't anything like the kind you would get into the grocery store. And right here, in this area right here, it's not very, it's pretty big considering the size of the garden, but these are our blueberry bushes. I had to move the ones from over where you see those wooden things laying down over there. Move them away from there because they were too close, and those are elderberries in there. That's where I'm going to be working today to pull weeds. Move them over closer down to here so that, you know, they could grow a little bit bigger into bushes and it wouldn't be so close to those elderberries. Over here I do have a couple of goji berry things, but I have to find them. They died down. They're not doing very well, and I have to get them out of this area. I have to put them someplace else to see if they'll grow better. A couple of raspberry bushes, which did okay, but I don't get any raspberries from them. At least they're growing. This is my asparagus bed right here, and I grew the asparagus from seed, and this year I should be getting asparagus. It's been 3 years already. So I gave them a good fertilizing not too long ago and covered them over with pine straw with a good, you know, couple inches of that, because that's what we have a lot of here. And this is my pollinator garden in our back garden. I have some pretty flowers growing in here, some wildflowers and some coreopsis, and two kinds of coreopsis. And the wildflowers, I don't know if you could see that green there, and there's a little bit of green over here. It's spiderwort. It's really pretty and I love it. And this here is a small strawberry garden. These are King Kong strawberries, which didn't do much last year. But whenever I went to fertilize them, I pulled off all the pine straw and there were runners all over the place. So I should have a good dozen plants in here now. So that would be very, very nice if they should grow. I might even move them up to my other strawberry bed. I don't know. But here, this is my elderberry formal garden, I guess you could say. And it did pretty well last year. I am stepping on my blueberries. Oops, don't want to do that. Did pretty well. I got quite a few heads off of there, and I have quite a few bits in the freezer for making pies. I'm gonna make pies this weekend. Okay, there's my wheelbarrow. This is my husband's garden. He's going to try to grow his big tomatoes that he likes to have for slicers. There's not a lot of sunlight that comes here because there's this oak tree here. It was a two-part oak tree. The one part had to come down because it broke really bad, but this is a very tall tree. I'm not going to show you upward because you'll get blinded by the sunlight, but that needs to come out of here. But we're going to plant some cabbages and things, and his tomatoes are going to go, they're going to go right up the edge, here. You could see that. And that should give him a good maybe 10 plants of big tomatoes, so hopefully we can have some nice slicers for making tomato sandwiches. That would be really, really good. There's a pile of leaves way in the back there, and that's going to be my experiment potato garden. I don't know if I'm going to put sweet potatoes in there or regular potatoes. I think I'll put sweet potatoes in there, because usually whenever I just throw sweet potatoes in a compost pile, they grow crazy and I get a lot of sweet potatoes. But if I try to grow them, they don't grow. So something's going wrong there. And I hope this year it's a little bit fruitful. So I do have a little bit more elderberries back here in the on the back part of the fence. This is where our neighbors, they have cows and horses over there. Our back area goes up to some cows and horses. But as you can see, there's some small elderberry plants here. These ones don't do too well. But these are the mother plants of the other ones. I took cuttings last year and they grew great. I have a peach tree here. It's been growing green leaves and such. I tried to graft it last year. It didn't work. But it's going to do something this year. It's still nice and green. So hopefully, well, what actually happened with them is we bought them at a farm supply store. The grafted part broke off. So this part here is actually the rootstock that's growing up. I don't know what kind of peach it would be, but you can never tell. I'm just going to leave it here and see what happens to it. And in here we also had this really huge, beautiful holly tree. It was very small. It was about half the size when we first moved here, but it's really, really a nice tree. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over here and start pulling the weeds and things out of my elderberries. And if I think of anything interesting to say, I'm going to turn the camera back on and we'll have a nice little chit chat. Talk to you later. One of the things I do want to tell you is that I do use cheap kitchen knives to pull my weeds out, because it digs down in under the roots. It doesn't hurt the plants, but it roots the weeds out really nicely, and I don't have to worry about too much roots being in there and don't have to pull weeds so often. So I'll show you how that works. These are the horrible Florida Batoni stuff. They have roots like crazy. Well, they're a vining thing, and they're in everything, and you just can't get rid of them. You kind of have to learn to live with them, which I don't want to learn to live with them, because for me they're a weed. Some people say that they're a food source, and they call them crones, C-R-O-S-N-E-S. If I find one of the tubers, I'll show you. But I don't think I'd want to eat something like this. They're really pretty. They look like radishes, but they're the tubers of these things, and they're so plentiful. And that's why this Florida Batoni, it propagates really quickly, because it dives under the ground and makes all these little tubers and makes a nice mess. We went to the supply store today, the farm supply store, and all this pine straw, they're selling like little cubes of it for $15. And I have all of these trees here. We collect it and we use it. That's what I use for my bedding for my chickens whenever I had chickens, and the chickens loved it. They didn't want to sit in straw, even though the straw smelled a whole lot better. But they would rather lay their eggs in the pine straw, I guess, because they've done it for such a long time. And I couldn't believe how expensive that was. $15 for something we burn a lot of. That's amazing. I could probably make a lot of money delivering this for landscapers or something, but I don't want to have to do that. I'd rather use it for my own flower gardens, because I have so many to take care of. They shoot out runners, and they pop up all over my garden. So I take a lot of them and transplant them back into here, but I also take a lot of them and burn them, because I didn't realize that elderberries would vine like that, would shoot out runners. Look at those roots. They just drop that that little tuber off in the ground when you pull them. Sometimes they come up, most times they come up, but today, of course, whenever I wanted to show you these, they don't come up out of the ground. Alrighty, get that out of there. Alright, that little section's done quickly. We got a lot of this wood sorrel that grows wild down here. Probably have it in your yards too. It's pretty much everywhere. And it gets little yellow flowers like little buttercups in summer and spring. But it's actually a food. It tastes lemony. It's really nice, and I like to put them in my salads. But my husband doesn't like them, so he ends up picking up all the green leaves I bring in from the yard. But I love this stuff. It's yummy. Lemony. On another note, don't eat anything unless you know exactly what it is, especially if you pull it out of your yard, because you can become very sick if you're not a forager. Well, I've been picking things. My dad taught me a lot of things whenever I was growing up, and I've been pulling some things out of the yard since I was a little kid. And I know what I can and cannot eat, so don't do it because I said it's good for you. Do it only if you know exactly what it is that you're pulling out of your yard. And that's a warning, because a lot of people can become sick just by pulling the wrong plant out of their yard. So I want you to behave, and I want you to be very careful as to what you are eating from wild foods. Okay, I found a couple of those runners of the elderberries, and I pulled them out of the ground. I hate to throw them out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to transplant them into here. As you see, there's like 1 or 2 little hairs of a root on each one. As long as there's at least 1 little hair, this baby will grow and take off. So this is all you got to do. Dig a hole, chunk it in, cover it over, and let it go. And that's all you got to do to plant one of those things. It's going rather quickly. I'm almost done. I have about 3 more feet to go on this thing. There's not many weeds, because I try to keep up with it during the year, which is really good. But here's my other scourge. This stuff. It vines out. What's nice about it is if you put a layer of mulch down, it'll only grow in the mulch. But if it's on soil, it's really hard to get out. But it's called dollarweed, and it's half the lawn down here is dollarweed, unless of course you put chemicals on your lawn and have somebody come in and do stuff to it. But most of the greenery in our lawns here is dollarweed. I've been out here about 15 or 20 minutes. I'm done with my elderberries, but I had to dig down at least 6 inches to find this thing. This is that tuber from that Florida Batoni or crone, as they call it. These are supposed to be edible. I haven't ever eaten it. I wasn't grown up eating these things, so I will not even try these things. But this is a rotting one. It's, like I said, I had to dig down 6 inches for it. But usually they're so white and crispy, and they look like a radish, a really beautiful radish, which I have trouble growing here. But anyhow, I finally found one, but it's not a good sample. Well, I got a lot of pine straw to clean up over on the other side, and there's too many twigs in it for me to even use it on here. I have extra pine straw that I could use. Now, the next thing I do is I lay down about 4 to 6 inches worth of pine straw over top of the old pine straw. What I noticed whenever I was cutting out the weeds from the soil, the soil underneath is really nice and loose, and it looks really fertile. The pine straw, year after year, it breaks down nicely into a neutral pH. It would usually be an acidic pH, but underneath, it's like anything else. When it breaks down, it turns to neutral. So I'm not worried about how acidic these pine needles are, because I know they're going to break down into a nice soil. In fact, that's the soil that it breaks down into. Really nice. Just like my compost from my compost pile. Okay, got that all done. No, yeah, not looking bad. Not looking bad at all. Nice and clean as compared to what it was looking like. Yeah. All right. Somebody came in to see me while I was getting some pine straw. There's Miss Holly. There's Miss Ruby. All righty. Let's go back and have a seat for a minute, a little chat. All righty. It is a beautiful day out, isn't it? I mean, it's cold and chilly, but here it is. Hi, ha, ha. Oh, I love you too. I love you too. Thanks for helping thanks for helping Mommy. Yeah, thanks for helping Mommy. Back out, back out, back out, back out. Yeah, good girls, good girls. Down. Wait a minute. Good girls. Have a seat. Sit down. Sit for Mommy. Sit. Sit. That ain't happening, huh? No. All right. So as you see behind me is my husband's beginning of his garden. He has some fertilizer in it. We put some Cumnor in it. And he hopes to plant some nice big tomatoes so we could have tomato sandwiches. And I'm hoping to sneak back some cabbages and other things that grow nicely in the shade back here. My girls are in my new planted blueberries. Blah. Anyhow, did a lot of work today in the past hour and a half. So I hope you enjoyed coming out and working with me today a little bit. I'll probably be doing something else. So until then, until I see you next time, you have a happy day and good gardening, and may your garden be prosperous this year, because I'm hoping that mine is too. Take care.